Hi, I'm ND Bucket. Welcome to the office. I hope you are excited about your new job as an
unpaid intern.
This video is to inform you on our current
Jumping
practices and how they came to be. Join me on this journey and we will see how those of us at
business name here
plan to revolutionize the
jumping
industry by thinking outside of the box, synergizing our deliverables, and engaging in a paradigm shift. You clicked on this video, so you know I'm making a game, and you know we're going to be talking about jumps. But let's talk about the game first. I'm making a 3D platformer, but it's also a time loop game where you play as a robot. I call him Jethead because he's got a TV for a face, but a jet in the back of his head, and that seemed much more important. I've slowly been tinkering on this project for a long time, but I'm trying to take it a bit more seriously, so I'm making this devlog about something I've done that I'm pretty proud of, which is the jump. I've made my jump highly configurable because as a programmer first, I wanted something that was reliable and gives me the freedom to tune with precision. It was also a lot more effort to get it to that spot than most people would be willing to put in, but I'm no stranger to making overcomplicated solutions for slightly better results. So let's look at the jump. Look at my boy. He's precious and he jump good. But what is a jump, I hear you ask? What? That's a jump. See, this feet leave ground? That's jump. The important part is when does the jump start and when does it end? When I say jump, I'm describing the moment from when you leave the ground to when you reach your maximum height. Anything after that is falling, and we aren't talking about falling today. So that word is a fireable offense. HR will back me up on that. So let's start with the typical jump people make for their first jump. It's the simplest way I can think of making a jump. The simple jump has two properties, jump force and gravity. You set the upward velocity of the jump on a button press to the jump force, and the gravity has added every frame to slow you down until you reach the apex of the jump. This is consistent if you do it right, but with just two variables, it's not as easily configurable to get desired outcomes. So how do we make this better? I want to be able to set the jump height directly and not muck around with balancing the jump force and gravity to achieve what I want. My first attempt was just to pick the height and just lerp the player's Y position over the needed time. And, oh man, oh god, look at it. It's disgusting. I think I'm gonna... Someone get me a bucket! A different bucket! Okay, let's look at the height time graph of this disgusting jump. See this triangular shape? The straightness of this is why it looks so disgusting. Your simple human brain cannot comprehend that this is a jump because it doesn't look like a jump that is physically possible. Going back to the simple jump, if you chart your height over time, it's a parabolic shape. The first half is the jump, and the second half would be when the character is falling. Hello? You've reached ND. What? You're firing me? For what? You can just take this job and shove it right up your... Well, now that he's gone, let me introduce myself. I'm your new boss. And, definitely a different guy. Okay, let's keep this party moving. If you think about how a person jumps when they push off the ground, that is the highest velocity part of the jump, and gravity slows them down until they reach the apex and stop jumping and begin to saunter vaguely downward. So this is where I had to flip my thinking about this graph. We want the velocity, not the height, so let's graph the velocity instead of the height. So the slope of the previous graph has become our y value on the new one. If your velocity is linear, then your line is flat. If your velocity is parabolic, then your line is diagonal, because the slope is gravity and gravity is a constant. How does the height configure into this graph? In the old graph, the height was the y-axis, but how do you tell how much height you've gained? Let's assume our velocity curve is between 0 and 1 on both axes. Your max vertical velocity starts at a 1 and ends 0 in the span of 1 second. To figure out how much your height has changed, you need to find the area under the curve. That's great, but we wanted to set the height, not get it. Luckily for us, the relationship between the area under the curve and the y-axis is linear. For example, if you multiply the y value by 2, the area under the curve is multiplied by 2. So we are just looking for a value to multiply the velocity to achieve the desired height. So area under curve times velocity multiplier equals your jump height. And we just solve for velocity multiplier, which is equal to the total jump height divided by the area under the curve. For a realistic jump, the area under the curve would always be the same. We could just hard code the area as 1/2 as previously shown. But games aren't realistic, so I'm not going to let my perfect jump be constrained by realism. We can make this velocity curve more forgiving. If we curve it like this means we go into the jump faster, but we slow down quicker, giving the player some soft hang time at the top of the jump. This is the same thing as if we manipulated the intensity of gravity during the jump, because we are changing the slope. Right now, we are assuming our jump will always be 1 second long, because that's what we assumed on the x-axis. To change that, we can just scale the x-axis. Alright, so we have a curve and a value to multiply the result by, so what do we do with this information? With this, we've got 3 variables we can use to make a jump: jump height, the velocity curve, and a total jump time. We also have the computed velocity multiplier and the current jump time. To get our desired velocity, we sample the velocity curve at the current jump time divided by total jump time and multiply by the velocity multiplier. So let's try this out, and oh no, that's too much height. Consistently too much height. If we change the time or the curve, it changes too. So we must have messed up in our math, right? Not really. We just needed to look more closely at our sampling. Each frame we sample the curve and update the velocity, but the velocity stays the same until the next frame. This makes the curve stair-shaped, and if you look at this new shape on a curve that has a changing slope like ours does, it produces more area, which explains why our jump height is off. So let's get better at sampling. We don't need to sample it at the current time. Instead, if we add half the delta time to our sample, that ends up shifting our curve, and the resulting height is pretty close to what we want. We still have some overage, but that is much less compared to what we were dealing with before. The reason why it's still there is because what we've done is an estimation of the area. We are far more accurate than we were before, but we are not totally accurate. Good enough. We have our jump from start to the apex now, but we're not quite done. Looking back at the simple jump, it only had 2 properties: jump force and gravity. Jump force happens in an instant force, but gravity happens over time. What happens if the gravity changes? Right now, my good jump can't really handle that, so let's fix it. If you want to follow my game, I recently set up a new Discord server called the Beetle Business Center for excellent video games and the occasional cat photo. I'm planning on posting regular updates and maybe even a really rough character controller demo soon, so check it out. On our realistic jump graph, it's normalized, so the slope is -1. Imagine a jump in 2x gravity. Double the gravity, doubles the slope. Graphing that line, we can see it hits 0 at exactly 0.5, which means in double gravity, it should take half the time to reach the apex of the jump. If we look at the area under this line, it's also exactly half the jump. That means that both the height and the length of time of the jump are directly proportional to gravity. We could just multiply our jump height and the time it takes to reach that at the start by 1 over gravity, but that doesn't fix our problem with it being over time instead of instantaneous at the beginning. The time of jump being proportional to the gravity is actually very important. How do we change our sampling on this line to produce this one? Well, we can change how quickly we move through time. If we calculate our current time by adding the delta time for each frame, what we can do instead is multiply this addition by our gravity scale. This lets us change gravity mid-jump at any point during the jump, and it will always react accordingly.
Okay, let's take a look at this in the actual Unity editor and see what we're dealing with and how it all works together. So on the right side, you'll see I have my jump velocity curve, jump height, and max jump time down at the bottom, and I can change my jump height. And when I jump, it will actually log my jump height. So with 3, I'm like at a 3.07 jump height. Up it to 5, I'm at 5.12. So the more jump you get, the more your percentage is over, but it's still reasonably close. And if I go inside of this little tube here, I have made it so my gravity is different. At half gravity, I'm now jumping at 5 instead of 2.5. It's taking twice as long. You get a little bit of a preview where my game is going with the changing gravity and stuff, but yeah, it's all working nicely together.
That's the bulk of our upward velocity handling. Right now, the horizontal movement isn't handled any different whether I'm on the ground or in the air, but you can do some specific handling like different rotation speeds, air acceleration, air braking, and you can do whatever you want. The world is your oyster, so get to shucking. HR has asked me to clarify that what I meant by this is to go make your own game and do it however you want. I will not be taking questions at this time. Some things you can implement to improve the entering and exiting of your jump state are coyote time, input buffering, and variable jump height. Want more information on these? Well, I don't have any more time. This video is already way too long, and I need to end it here. But if you want to ask me questions about these, you could join my Discord or leave me a comment down below. So that's how I've made my perfect jump for my game. It's not perfect, but it's as close as I think I'm going to get. Do I think all of this effort was worth it and everyone should implement this jump in their games?
Blah, blah, blah. I started rambling here and I'm editing it and I'm sick of it. Psychonauts 2 did a devlog where they're talking about their jump and they do something similar where they can change gravity mid-jump, but it looks like they're doing it in discrete steps rather than continuously like I am. So I feel at least a little vindicated that this can produce a good game feel, even though I haven't done any user testing yet.
Well, that's all I've got, so thank you for watching. If you got it this far, please consider liking and subscribing because this is my first video. And if you don't want to do that, tell me why in the comments. Increase my engagement, I dare you. So that's all. I look forward to our next business encounter. Thanks for watching.